Hey, everybody. It is Sunday, November 21st. I'm Ed Carvajal for MMAnews.com, and this is your Sunday submission. It is the Sunday after UFC Vegas, hashtag UFC Vegas 43, and Crawford and Porter. Where Porter announced his retirement after the loss last night. So we're going to talk about that. It's oddly enough, I just found a weird retirement theme connection. But before we move forward, make sure you click the thumbs up and bell notification at the MMAnews.com YouTube channel where these videos live. And you'll see interviews with our most recent, Brendan Allen, where he talks about Roman Dolidze and his UFC contract renewal and a couple other things with the Canadian god James Lynch. We got other interviews on there that I mentioned last week. I know that Terrence McKinney was on there for last night's event, and then his corner tested positive, or his cornerman tested positive. One of his cornermen tested positive for COVID-19. So as a precaution, they removed the entire bout, which I guess you can't blame them for. But normally I stream this live on my Twitter, where you can follow me at Carbazel. But got a late start today. It's a rough week, if you can't tell by the bags under my eyes and the laundry hanging in the background. My apologies for my gi pants hanging drying in the background. I would have taken down, but they're still a little wet, so they're gonna stay up. But yeah, so let's get right into it. I mean, I think we're gonna get a little break for the holiday because it's a Sunday before Thanksgiving. So happy let me hit you with the happy Thanksgiving now. I probably do it again at the end. But it was a weird UFC event. I mean, it was down to 8 fights. All of them went to decision, which I'm not a fan of. I kind of saw the rhetoric of folks complaining about that online, but the fights seem to be pretty decent for the most part, even though shorter card and longer fights. Most people like to see finishes. I believe the only finish was the submission, the choke. Let me bring this up on the screen here. We have the highlights and results up at MMAnews.com. So might as well just bring that up right now. Get to the quick results here. Submission was Talia Santos over Joanne Wood, who's used to be Calderwood, but now it's Wood. In the first round. So that was the only finish. Everything else went to a decision, either unanimous or split. The main event with Caitlin Vieira, Miesha Tate. I got to talk about Miesha Tate, the way she handles. So again, if you go to MMAnews.com, you can check out the full results and the highlights of the fights that were worth. I mean, they're all worth watching, but if you just check out the results and the highlights here, I'd play them for you. But if you've been following along, you know why I don't do that anymore. But it was it's funny because it's like coming off of UFC 268. It's like we hit this peak with a superb card. There's one more pay-per-view on December 11th, 269. But it's like now they hit this peak, and then we're like trickling as far as like pleasing the fans, I should say. Because it's not like these guys aren't out there giving it their all. It's just not everyone. Every competition, I think overall in the sport of mixed martial arts, when you look at the evolution of fighters and how good they got and how good they're probably gonna get, it's getting to a point where it's like, don't be surprised if you see either a huge disparity between one versus one. Like someone's going to finish, like the Khabib level type of stuff and versus everyone else, or evenly matched fighters like we saw at this event. And I think the best example of that is the main event with Miesha Tate and Caitlin Vieira, because I don't know what the odds were. I don't remember if Tate was the favorite, but the thing about that I was most impressed with was not even the fight. It's just the after the fight. The fight that the fact that Tate was in a good mood. The last time we saw her fight was in 2016. She before she walked away for a while. That was at UFC 205 in New York City. She lost to Raquel Pennington, a unanimous decision. And excuse me. And if you if you go back and watch that, and you'll see her like in the cage and arguing with her then boyfriend Brian Caraway, like, and she's saying, I'm done," and she's like frustrated and just mad about everything. I think in combat sports we see I don't know, sports overall. I mean, how many retirements do pro athletes make? Sometimes it's just a matter of going home and taking a break, letting your body heal, letting your joints heal, and maybe those pains that, because if you don't know by now, I mean, especially if the demographic that this website hits and this YouTube channel probably, um, most of MMAnews.com's target is probably not even aware of the pains, the growing pains that a lot of these fighters put in, and no one's 100% walking in there. So sometimes the time off will let a lot of those things heal. Like I remember Kamaru Usman during his rise up the welterweight ranks, he had an issue with his foot that he didn't even get fixed until like he was, just before or was it after? I'd have to look into it, but he had an issue with his foot that he didn't get fixed for the longest because he didn't want to stop that path. And then when he finally got to a point where he could start calling shots and stuff, he took some time off and got himself fixed, got himself right. Um, I remember Rampage before he, I mean, did he officially retire? I don't even know, but I remember when he first signed with Bellator, and he was getting better. He picking up a couple of wins. He had issues with his knees that, being with having the new money, signing with Bellator, he was able to get his knees fixed, and that helped him with pickups the last few wins he got in his career. And then I'm trying to think who else. I mean, how many times did Randy Couture retire and then come back? Um, it just goes on and on. And I mean, look at Michael Jordan. If you look at all over all the professional sports, but so she took 4 years and she took her position with one championship. I think she still has it. And you know, sitting back and watching all these other women come up and watching the sport evolve and become household names, and all the Modelo and crypto and all, the growth and the eyeballs that the sport's been getting, um, called her back into fighting. So she came back. She fought Marion Renault, third round TKO. Got a performance of the night bonus for that back in this past July, and this was her second fight. So she's 1-1 in her return, 19-8 overall. But I think there's something to be said. But I mean, the way she handled the loss, and the whole reason I'm bringing it up is because I don't remember who she did the interview with. I think it was probably Junkie, because I check out a lot of their stuff um, during this fight week for UFC Vegas 43 for this main event, and she alluded to excuse me, she alluded to her losses to Rousey and how she feels she could beat her now. And I'm of the opinion that I mean, overall, when you're looking at the grand scheme of both of your careers in this and mixed martial arts, never mind, I mean, because she's not going to touch Rousey's Olympic accomplishments in judo and stuff like that, but overall, as far as it comes to mixed martial arts and competition and fighting, you've already beat her by showing how well you handle defeat. If any criticism from the MMA fandom comes at Rousey, it's usually because of the way she handled. I mean, if she was undefeated up until she lost to Holly Holm, and she literally, like, she had to leave the sport for a while, like she retired, and then they come back only to lose again to Amanda Nunes. And then we just never, she went to pro wrestling, and now we don't, hear from her outside of her other adventures and things like that, and or if someone asks her something about the sport, but it seems like this thing that she doesn't even want to touch anymore because of I mean, sore sore loser type behavior. I don't want to call her a sore loser because, again, she's folks that compete in the Olympics, I don't really like, you know they're on another level. Overall, they're just on another level athletically, at whether, no matter where they are now, they've been world, uh global level competition at one point in their lives. So that's something you can't take away from her. But um she lost. Misha Tate lost to Rousey, what, three times? Let me see. Rousey won, two. There's 2 times, right? Yeah, 2 times. She lost to Ronda Rousey twice, and you know everyone's probably by now seen that video of the arm getting bent the other way, and she still came back and fought, and still came back. I mean, after her last loss to Rousey, she fought a bunch of times until she became champion herself, the bantamweight champion. And yeah, she lost to Amanda Nunes. Okay, so she lost to Amanda Nunes, who would like that's like saying Mike Tyson, in boxing or whatever. But um, I think overall she's definitely beaten Rousey in the respects of being conducting herself like a champion. Thus far, the fact that she's still fighting and Rousey's done with fighting, so I don't even know why she brought her up. Maybe she wants to bring her back into the sport because that would be some really good money for both of them. I mean, just the name recognition alone, UFC loves stuff like that now, especially. They would definitely make some money off of a fight like that. But and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Um, the way when she talked to DC afterwards, she just seemed to be having fun, and I don't obviously we're not going to see the last of her. Um, this fight with had she won against Vieira last night, it would have been really cool, but it is what it is. She lost a decision, but I just think it's admirable. I mean, normally we talk about the winners and stuff like that, and I mean, I guess that's why I like to think of myself as a different person that covers this sport and focus on just the mindset and going into this. I mean, they both conducted themselves like true martial artists. I think they both deserve some congratulations. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about, the reason why I'm talking about retirement and the losers of last night's competitions, is because when we go over to the world of boxing, Terence Crawford and Sean Porter went at it. Um, uh, Sean Porter's dad, I should say, threw in the towel, and it was one of those situations where, and you watch their post fight interview in the ring, um, you could see there was no. It's like they had both had an understanding, and he alluded to that. There's an understanding where there's sometimes comes a time where either you're doing too much or you've been doing it too long, and so and he took a lot of damage. He took a lot of damage, and he was losing. I think Adrian Broner was one of the people that had the fight scored for him, though. But I mean, if you watch it and you look at the damage that he took, he was losing. So his father threw in the towel to protect him, and it seems to be like it was one of those things where it was an unwritten agreement between them that if fights like that ever got that bad, perhaps it might be time to call it a career. But the thing about retirement in combat sports, if you look back at the Misha Tate situation, maybe he's taking a break. But I'll say this: he did say it at the post-fight press conference, and he said one of the things that media and fans expect. I don't remember word for word, but he was like, "You guys expect us to fight for 20 years or something like that," and um, excuse me, you know, the their bodies and they have to think. No one's really thinking about that. I mean, as fans, I mean, even myself included, anyone that covers a sport or anyone that tries to feel what these guys feel in the training room as hobbyists, um, we're still guilty of rah 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 and getting all bloodthirsty and what have you, like the just bleed guy in that meme. I always make fun of my podcast co-host Matt Hawkins when I'm talking about the way he watches fights versus the way I watch fights. And most of the time it's different. I see things that he doesn't see. He doesn't, because he's more of the fan side and I do like the media side. And again, I'm a hobbyist martial artist. I'm not doing living the life that the way these guys that are out there that treat their bodies as tools tools of destruction and the Justin Gaethjes and all these guys that compete from regional amateur all these guys that compete. Um, but I think that's the difference. Is even themselves when you think about it, because some of them do want to fight forever and have to be the hand has to be forced. We've all heard the stories about Chuck Liddell and how Dana White had to pretty much pay him, to not fight. And then when the UFC got sold or whatever, we saw him back in the cage again with uh, Tito Ortiz, and then under the one Golden Boy MMA event. And then there's talk of him doing one of these freak show boxing events under the Triller banner or what have you, or no, or he said he wanted to fight Jake Paul in one of these Pauls. Um, so sometimes they don't even know when to retire. So I think it's commendable to know when you need to take a break, especially if you're competing at the level that Porter and Tate compete at. I mean, she stepped away. She became a mother. She actually was coaching a lot of fighters. I don't know if anyone knew that, but a couple of Combate Global fighters. She's actually a really good coach. She's got some nice drills and stuff. If you look it up online, you can see she's not just a pretty face that knows how to throw down. She's got she's really great depth of knowledge to pass on to other fighters. Which I think that's why she's got the position as an ambassador. Or let me see, what's her official title with one. I gotta look it up now because it's bothering me. One championship, vice president. So there. And she fights. So she's the vice president of one, and she fights. So like, come on. Um, she's her love for the sport is not going, and she's fighting again. So back to Sean Porter's retirement, though. You know, he he's he took an L last night, but he's 34 years old, right? He's 34 years old. His career, he said something about. I mean, he alluded to how folks want him to fight, expect him to fight, 20 years or whatever. He's already been fighting for over 10 years. His career started in 2008. Um, 31, 4, and 1 is his record after last night. After the what was it 10th, 12th round they threw in the towel. His dad threw in the towel. But so I mean he could come back. You never know. But I mean the fact that he one of the things he talked about was the mental health and the whole fandom thing that I was talking about, and it just seems like the um he's taking the responsibility, because sometimes people will fall victim to the crowd's noise and believing their own hype. I think that's something that happened with Rousey. I mean, I hate to say it because um, even with Conor McGregor, and I know I'm probably going to get, especially from the folks that check out MMAnews.com, I'm probably going to get flamed for it. So here's my shield. Um, you know, he was somebody that I remember watching him prepare against Chad. It was supposed to be RDA, and he wound up fighting Chad Mendes for UFC 189. Pretty sure that was. I'd have to look back at it, but I remember watching him get ready in his drill. It was like 2, maybe 3 weeks notice of the change in opponent, and McGregor did his homework on the alpha male blueprint of fighting, where they go for takedown, they mount, and they try to either take the back or do a mounted guillotine, and you could see that he drilled for that in that short amount of time against Chad Mendes. If you rewatch that fight, um, so it looks like he knew he was going to be taken down, and he knew what he had to deal with once it happened, and the fact that you could really see his because it happens a few times before the finish comes, and so when that happens and you hit the peak that he with the two titles and the peak that he hit, and then you step away because you believe you're this other entity. Then he went and did the boxing thing with Mayweather, and he never really retired, but he held up a division and blah blah blah. Then he comes back to where guys that he beat like Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, who we all know that because that's recent history. Hand him losses, or Max Holloway hasn't happened yet, but I remember him saying he'd like to fight Max Holloway again. I wouldn't be surprised if that fight does happen either. But I mean, especially with the injury that he suffered, is that gonna, do we see that going differently from the first time that they fought? Absolutely, absolutely. And the point I'm making is in the evolution in combat sports, um, sometimes a break is good and sometimes a break is bad. Right now, Misha Tate is TBA. Maybe Porter's on a break, or maybe he's retired for good. I would hope that when it comes to, especially with boxing, because the thing that I think we're starting to realize about boxing is that, um, the head trauma is always an issue that's going to be brought up in combat sports. Even in the 90s, excuse me, before the recent deaths that have happened in combat sports overall, in boxing and in bare knuckle boxing. So I think brain health is something that as combat sports evolves and they're looking for other ways, mixed martial arts definitely has the edge because of the other ways to win, but the knockouts are still there, and I think it's nice to see the younger generation of pugilists and other combat sports athletes recognize that they need to start paying attention to how long they can do it. And only that VADA study that came out that week of Belfort and Holyfield about how the brain starts to shrink after the age of 40 in the average human being. You know, that only puts another benchmark on the shelf life of a combat sports athlete. So, we hear it all the time. I think I've said it multiple times on this YouTube channel. It's it is a young man's sport. Combat sports is definitely a young man's sport, and so I think if Porter doesn't decides to stay retired, then that's just something. I mean, the cool thing about these boxers is I always love when a former combat sport, whether it be boxing, MMA, kickboxing, what have you, if they are from that sport and they get an analyst position, those are the best positions that exist in any type of coverage for the live events, because that they know what they're talking about. That they see things that other people aren't seeing, and that's educational for the audience and newer fans of the sport as the sport moves on. So hopefully somebody gives him a role like that. He's definitely a well-spoken guy. I was really impressed with the what he said at the post-fight press conference, especially since he brought up looking at his health and what's the expectation. It looks like he's definitely paying attention to that. And the other thing too, um, I know Dana White likes to say it a lot. If you're talking about retirement, then you should probably retire. If you're thinking about retirement, then you should probably retire. But you never hear him say anything as to coming back to fighting. I think that depends on how long. Like, obviously, he didn't want Chuck Liddell to ever come back to fighting, and I know it bothered him when he did. Mm. And the other thing too is, like, are they going to come back to with the rise in bare knuckle? People are like worried about them coming back to bare knuckle boxing, and with the death that happened there, again, that was more because of how the man fell. So I don't know how you're going to fix things like that. I mean, we spoken to Sean Wheelock, who does commentary, and he sits on the board of the Kansas State Athletic Commission. And the thing with Triller that they're doing now, they're doing this, if they do it, that triad combat, with modified. It's like weird. It's like a weird, dirty boxing rule set. So I mean, you still can't throw any kicks, and there's no submissions, but you can. There's different types of holding you're allowed to do, which kind of, to me, it just looked like dirty boxing. No elbows, just dirty boxing. That's where Mike Perry will be fighting next. Frank Mir is supposed to be fighting there, um, and that's relatively soon. But I know there's some legal issues with the naming of the name of the rights to the ring and stuff like that. I mean, it just seems like Triller doesn't have all their ducks in a row. And I hate to say it because their PR folks are usually pretty great with me, but you know, got to be honest when you're talking about especially when you're talking about a unique brand of combat sports and a new way to combat at combat sports, because there's still the health of these fighters on the line. So, and I know they know what they're getting into when they sign up for it, but I just think I don't know, it's weird to it's something that it seems to be coming up a lot, especially when it comes to combat sports these days. I don't know if it's because we're getting more sensitive, um, or what have you, but it's definitely something that I mean, it deserves a look at. But maybe we still need to. MMA is only going to be what, like almost 30 years old, and boxing's been around for a long time. So maybe, I mean, if anything, maybe it's time to modify the sport a little bit. But as far as the longevity goes, when you're looking at combat sports as a whole, um, the younger they start, I mean, and Nick and Nate, they started when they were like in their late teens, 18 or 19 years old. So you have to, if you use the 20-year mark that Porter mentioned in his post fight press conference, then that's when you kind of got to start if you're gonna do anything about it. I mean, not everyone that has the unique um what's the word I'm looking for, um the God-given talent like John Jones has. I mean, he's a natural fighter, but he's also messing up outside of fighting. But the fact that he got to where he got at such a young age with I forgot how long he was training when he won the title the first time. Um but I mean, I've been training close to close to 30 years, and I don't think I don't think I'm can do anything as good as John Jones has been doing it, especially at the level that he's done it. Speaking of which, he's supposed to be doing a grappling event, sub only grappling event for Fury Pro, December 9th, I think it is the date, but it was supposed to be him and Jake Hager, who fights at Bellator. And he's got a wrestling background. I believe he's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, which is technically the same level John Jones is, but um I know when John Jones tweeted that out and Hager responded with he hadn't signed anything yet, but Fury Pro is the grappling submission only grappling event under the Cage Fury Fighting Championship banner, which is the regional promotion that John Morgan and CM Punk do the commentary for. And they've been expanding their region because they used to only do this area, Northeast, or at least the East Coast, and it looks like they're in Texas. And the Fury Pro grappling thing is really good. I mean, I hope that takes off, and they're getting names like this. John Jones last competed in something like this. Off the top of my, I know he does like Naga and stuff locally, but off the top of my head, I think the last time was like Submission Underground 3 or 2 or 4. I forget one of the early Submission Underground events. That's Chael Sonnen's thing in the cage, and he did a grappling match against Dan Henderson, and he won by armbar. So if that's the case, I'm wondering if this thing with Hager goes through, maybe the edge lies with John Jones. I also think it's a way for him to test the pressure of, because he wants to move to heavyweight. I also think this is a way for him to test the pressure of handling the another body at the weight that he's been bulking up to. I mean, Hager's definitely a good guy to do that against. As far as I know, Hager's only got, outside of his wrestling, and his size, he's got takedowns and the submissions that I think he won 2 MMA fights with arm triangle, just your basic arm triangle, from Mount. If I'm not mistaken, I'd have to check, but it would be a good grappling match. So if anything, that would definitely put probably some high viewership numbers for Fury Pro Grappling. I'm definitely going to watch it, and it's here in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So I plans to get down there, but maybe I might still do that just as a spectator instead of, or maybe cover the events too. I have to think about it, but because it's not that far away. Thanksgiving's right around the corner. And speaking of which, that's wrapping up time here for me. So again, sorry for doing this so late. Again, I normally stream this on my Twitter, where you can follow me at Carbazel and check out all the news and combat sports news as well. I think we got a little bit of a break, so you'll probably see some stuff at MMAnews.com of other things going on outside of the UFC because they'll be thirsty for news. And again, make sure you do thumbs up, bell notification at the YouTube channel so you can keep up with content like this and other stuff that we got going on here at MMAnews.com. Have a happy Thanksgiving. Be thankful that you have folks to be around and that you're still around to do it. Take care.